The evolution of street fashion and high fashion has been an interesting phenomenon to say the least. There has been an invasion of factions within the subculture of street fashion. Then there was high fashion brands drawing inspiration from street fashion brands. There was a cultural coup by Kanye West and his Yeezy aesthetic, followed by Jerry Lorenzo's run and the incorporation of Japanese, European and Korean elements into street fashion. The look of street fashion went from skater to homeless, to snake from Super Smash Bros, to ripping off impoverished culture, to construction workers and manual labor personnel. I think it's safe to say that there is absolutely no place that fashion will not go to draw influence from. Literally nowhere. Even when you look at it and you can tell that it is bad and it will not end good, there is no place that fashion will not go to draw influence from. I mean, honestly, why? Okay, you look at it and you say, why? Why would you, why? Who was in the meetings and was like, okay, Jimmy, I think this is the one, like, a noose, blackface. What? Though it is a typical consensus to believe that this generation of fashion savants is responsible for the current styles, many of what is prevalent today at the moment is a product of years of building, even before this current body of influencers was placed into the equation. For this video, I'll be looking at workwear, more specifically Carhartt, and its evident rise to streetwear mainstream attention. So this may come as a surprise, but believe it or not, Carhartt was not made last year to facilitate the ever-growing genre of workwear fashion, or blue-collar fashion as I call it. The brand is actually 130 years old, one of the oldest American-grown brands. Carhartt was started in 1989 in Michigan by a man by the name of Hamilton Carhartt. Placing a heavy emphasis on marketing research, Hamilton was able to discover a niche market in need of specialized clothing. This market was railway workers. Wait, I have a joke. I just thought of this, right? Alright, boom. So, why did the group of railway workers contract AIDS? Because they ran a train. Get it? Train, because like the railway workers. And through speaking to workers, Carhartt was able to construct garments that fit the needs of these blue-collar workers. The brand experienced significant success in the space of 10 years, resulting in Carhartt opening a number of factories, mills, sewing facilities, all situated in America. Carhartt quickly became a favorite among the railway workers in the early 1900s. Carhartt established a relationship with the US government during the First World War in 1914 by offering 7 of their facilities to the US to manufacture military wear. 1929 was a hard year for every entrepreneur that owned stocks in America or was connected to American stocks in some way, especially Shelby Company. With the stock market crashing harder than Britney Spears in 2007, Carhartt was drastically affected by this, stating that the company was on the verge of collapsing. But poor Hammy, after he survived death, he couldn't survive death. Yeah, he died in 1937. But the company was taken over by his son Wiley Carhartt. Shortly after, in 1939, World War II hit. Due to the relationship built, Carhartt personally created pieces for the military. Was always and will always be a profitable factor for certain classes in an economy. Kinda explains why there's always one. Post the destruction induced by the World War, Carhartt was able to take initiative and capitalize on the attempts of Americans to rebuild America after this catastrophe. Carhartt henceforth created garments tailored for a wide array of blue-collared workers, expanding and diversifying their core to cater to the entire blue-collar or manual working force. Carhartt became the face of manual labor clothing with a motto that encapsulated and mobilized everything working-class citizens stood for. An honest value for an honest dollar. Yeah, that's it. Nothing deep, nothing too intricate, but surely effective. Fast forward to the 70s and 80s, Carhartt is one of the main brands, if not the main brand, associated with American workwear, but another market was entering the equation. This was the hip-hop community, and they started with the most reputable source of hip-hop tastemakers. Yes, drug dealers. Through this, the youth of these urban communities began acknowledging Carhartt and valued it as it was now synonymous with persons of that community. But that was just the tip of the long insertion Carhartt made into the hip-hop community. Pause. By the 1990s, Carhartt was further embedded into hip-hop community, with Tommy Boy, a popular record brand at that time, giving out 100 Carhartt jackets with embroidered Tommy Boy on it. This jacket was later seen on the current hip-hop legends, and most importantly was seen on one of the most sanctified and easily recognizable rap songs of all time, House of Pain Jumping Around music video. It's a song that kinda goes like... Once again, we could see the hip-hop community being fundamental in taking a traditionally niche brand and making it desired by a vastly wider audience. During the 90s, Carhartt also made additional power moves, such as the creation of Carhartt Work in Progress by Edwin Fay in 1994, targeting streetwear youth mainly from Europe. The aesthetic of the brand more or less stayed the same, maintaining continuity. Garments were altered to suit the needs of the skater community. Additionally, the brand was changed from an all-American brand to a real American brand by having majority of its clothing manufactured in Mexico by 1997, because what says America more than good old cheap minority labor? Throughout all the changes made by Carhartt, they never turned on their core audience once, and in return, the core market never turned on them. In many cases, fashion represents unique cult ideologies expressed through clothing, but what Carhartt shows is that fashion can also represent a commonality or general consensus of a people. Despite the many differences in physical appearances and ideologies, they can all agree on something as simple as clothes, showing that there is hope for acknowledging that there will always be differences among a large population, but the point on understanding and acceptance can be achieved. Or maybe I'm just looking too deep into it and it's just work pants. The 2000 has read itself as yet another potential market for Carhartt, as their garments gain attention from unlikely groups of persons: middle-class office professionals, a female audience, high-end street community, and pop stars. Certain items dating back to the early 1900s are still popular today, like the engineer's sack coat and the heavy-duty hooded jacket of the late 90s. Other recent pieces such as the double-duck carpenter pants and the beanies also gained large notoriety. What I've learned from Carhartt is that things aren't always as simple as they seem. Carhartt is not flourishing in the fashion community due to bloggers and tastemakers, but as a result of staying true to their philosophy and appearing in homes of Americans for generations. Carhartt is deeply rooted in Americans' history, as it was present, survived, and was influential in many monumental historical points within Americans' history. Carhartt is by definition America's brand. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to leave a comment, maybe like, subscribe, and yeah.